Breaking tonight, something is happening inside United Nations headquarters in New York, and almost nobody is talking about it. No press conferences, no dramatic votes, no walkouts, just a quiet confirmation delivered on July 2nd, 2026, by Canada's own ambassador to the UN. A confirmation that a plan sketched out on a stage in the Swiss Alps 6 months ago is no longer a speech. It's now a working machine. And the country running that machine isn't the United States. It isn't China. It's Canada. Stay with me because to understand what just happened, we need to go back to January. Davos, Switzerland, the World Economic Forum. Prime Minister Mark Carney steps up to deliver what would become one of the most talked about speeches of the year. His message was blunt for a room full of billionaires and heads of state. The world's middle powers, countries like Canada, Australia, Japan, South Korea, need to band together, advance their own interests, and stop waiting for permission from the superpower club. Because if they don't, Carney warned, they won't be partners in the New World Order. They'll be subjects of it. At the time, critics rolled their eyes. Nice words, they said. Davos theater. Every leader gives a speech like that eventually, and then flies home and does exactly what Washington tells them to do. Except Carney didn't fly home and fall in line. He flew home and started building. Dear viewers, this is the part of the story that matters. Because this week we got proof that the Davos speech wasn't theater, it was a blueprint. David Lametti, Canada's ambassador to the United Nations, and a former federal justice minister, went on the record. His words: Canada has set up a number of different kinds of relationships that work for specific issues, and this is precisely the manner in which Prime Minister Carney envisioned it. In other words, the doctrine is operational. The theory has left the whiteboard and entered the building, the tall glass one on the East River in Manhattan. The doctrine has a name, and if you've been watching this channel, you've heard it before: variable geometry. Carney first laid it out back in November 2025. He described a foreign policy built on dynamic, overlapping, pragmatic coalitions. Coalitions organized around shared interests, occasionally shared values, but not necessarily shared institutions. Translation: stop putting all your eggs in one basket labeled Washington. Build 10 smaller baskets instead. If one gets knocked over, 9 are still standing. Carney even gave a concrete example of how this works in practice. Take climate change. Under variable geometry, Canada doesn't wait for a single global superpower to lead. It works with trade rules written by the European Union, technology standards drafted by China and India, nature-based solutions supplied by Brazil. Different partners for different problems. No permanent dependence on anyone. For 70 years, Canadian foreign policy had one gravitational center: the United States. Trade flowed south, security flowed north, and when Washington sneezed, Ottawa caught pneumonia. Variable geometry is Carney's answer to that vulnerability, and this week we learned it's not coming someday, it's here now. If you want to understand where Canada is headed before the headlines catch up, hit subscribe, because this channel tracks these moves the moment they happen, not weeks later. So what does variable geometry actually look like inside the UN? Lametti gave us the map, and it's more extensive than almost anyone realized. Start with Haiti. As gang violence tears through the country, a UN group of nations is coordinating the response. Yes, it's co-led by Ottawa and Washington, but look at who else is at the table. Central American governments directly threatened by uncontrolled migration and smuggling. Countries with skin in the game, not just flags on a wall. That's the model. Build the coalition around the problem, not around the alliance chart. Then there's a group most Canadians have never heard of: the Mountains Group. Canada, Australia, Iceland, Liechtenstein, New Zealand, Norway, Switzerland. 7 nations, all with major mountain ranges, hence the name, and all committed to one mission: defending human rights at the United Nations. And here's the detail that should stop you in your tracks. According to Lamedi, the Mountains Group's work has become more prominent for one specific reason: because Washington has stepped back from championing human rights at the UN. Read that again. The United States, the country that built the post-war human rights architecture, the country that lectured the world for decades, is retreating from the field. And who's filling the vacuum? Not China, not Russia. A coalition of middle powers with Canada at the center of it. 7 small and mid-sized democracies, doing the job a superpower decided it no longer wanted. Dear viewers, that is not a small thing. Hat is the tectonic plates of the international order shifting in real time, and Canada is positioning itself exactly where the new ground is forming. The list keeps going. There's JUSCANZ, pronounced JUSCANZ, and yes, that's really what diplomats call it. Japan, the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Turkey, South Korea. A coordination bloc for developed countries outside the European Union, sharing information on the policies that shape their economies. Canada isn't just a member. Through these groups, Lamedi says, Ottawa is actively pushing the issues Carney cares about most, from the safe adoption of artificial intelligence to the protection of civilians in conflict zones. And Lamedi has been working shoulder to shoulder with his Australian and New Zealand counterparts on files ranging from women in peacekeeping to the Israel-Palestine conflict. His explanation was simple: like-minded countries, shared values, pooled work, greater efficiency, small groups moving fast while the big powers posture. But the boldest move in this entire strategy isn't happening at the UN at all. It's happening in the world of trade, and the timing could not be more dramatic. Carney has been working to link the CPTPP, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, the massive Pacific trading bloc, directly with the European Union. Think about what that means. 2 of the largest rules-based trading systems on Earth, bridged together, with Canada as one of the only countries holding membership access to both worlds. For a Canadian exporter in Ontario or a producer in Alberta, that's not an abstract diplomatic achievement. That's a second door. A market of hundreds of millions of consumers, operating on predictable rules, reachable without asking anyone in Washington for a favor. Why does that matter right now? Because of what's coming out of Washington this very week. The United States has signaled it will not renew its trade agreement with Canada and Mexico. The deal that governed North American commerce, the deal Canadian exporters built their entire business models around, is heading for the shredder. Translation: the American economic umbrella Canada stood under for 3 decades is being folded up, and Carney, 6 months ago, started building a roof of his own. Lamedi named the threat directly: economic coercion, coming from both the United States and China. 2 superpowers, both willing to weaponize trade. And Canada's answer isn't to pick a side, it's to build a third structure, a rules-based trading web that no single superpower can shut down. If this analysis is helping you connect the dots, do me a favor and share this video with one person who still thinks Canada has no foreign policy of its own. They need to see this. Now here's the part that will surprise some of you. This past Monday, at a virtual panel hosted by the NATO Association of Canada, Lamedi said something that would have been unthinkable in Ottawa just 3 years ago. Re-establishing good relations with China and India is a vital Canadian interest. Remember the context. Canada's relationship with Beijing went through the deep freeze of the 2 Michaels crisis. The relationship with New Delhi collapsed into open diplomatic warfare. And yet here is Canada's top diplomat at the UN saying, publicly, that repairing both relationships is vital. Is this a betrayal of Canada's traditional alliances? Lamedi answered that question before anyone could ask it. His words: "We are not abandoning our traditional alliances so much as we are adding to them, building onto relationships Canada already had. And honestly, that's the genius of the whole design. Variable geometry isn't anti-American, it's anti-dependence. NATO stays, NORAD stays, the friendship with Washington stays wherever Washington still wants it. But the days when Canada's entire international existence ran through a single capital city, those days are ending, deliberately, methodically, one coalition at a time. And notice how it's being done. No angry press conferences, no burning of bridges, just quiet construction, group by group, file by file, until one day the world looks up and realizes Canada has options it never had before. Step back and look at the timeline. November 2025, Carney defines variable geometry. January 2026, the Davos speech puts middle powers on notice. And now, July 2026, Canada's UN ambassador confirms the machine is running. Haiti, the Mountains Group, JUSCANZ, the CPTPP-EU bridge. All of it live, all of it working, all of it built while Washington was busy walking away from the trade deal that once defined this continent. For decades, the criticism of Canadian foreign policy was that it was reactive. Ottawa waited, watched, and followed. What we're witnessing now is something different. A plan announced in public, executed on schedule, and confirmed by the people running it. Whatever you think of Mark Carney, this much is now undeniable. He told the world exactly what he was going to do, and then he did it. The superpowers are playing checkers with tariffs and threats. Canada is quietly playing a longer game, and this week, we saw the board. If you want to keep seeing that board before everyone else does, join the Canada Next community, subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop your take in the comments. Is variable geometry Canada's smartest move in a generation, or a gamble that could leave us standing alone? I read every comment, and tomorrow's video may depend on it. This is Canada Next. I'll see you tomorrow.